going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video, and today it's the Game Week 27 preview. So we're going to go through, as always, some of your questions and topics that you've put to me. Of course, the big one this week is Son's injury. Looks like he's going to be out for pretty much the rest of the season now. Very unfortunate for those that own him like me, but we're going to talk about replacements as well as a bunch of other stuff and captaincy. But before we jump into that, I did want to say the video has been sponsored by OneFootball once again. If you've not already checked it out, it's completely free app. Team news, lineup news, general football news, league tables, and live scores and stuff on the weekend, which is really good as well as an FPL manager. So if you want to check it out, whether it's on Android and iOS devices, you can just search OneFootball in the store or click the link in the description below. And like I said, it's completely free. Give it a go and see what you think. Otherwise, we will jump into this one. So there's quite a few kind of RX, team now options, or should I keep or sell certain players in this video? So we'll start off with Arsenal first. Our Arsenal players now options. Quite a few of this kind of questions came up this week. Not surprising when they just beat Newcastle 4-0 at the weekend. Doing pretty well. Aubameyang in the points as always. But Pepe was kind of the star man. 2 assists and a goal there. 17 points total. Someone actually had him in my mini league, which I was very surprised about. But didn't captain him obviously, so not too bad. But I'm really trying hard, I think, at the moment to not just say they've got a blank game week, ignore them and wait until after the blank game week to get them in. Because I do that every single year. You tend to miss out on points. Only one more week, of course, that we've now got to wait. There's going to be the blanking game week 28. And they got games either side of that. So I'm trying not to focus too much on that. And for Arsenal, they do have pretty good fixtures before and after. So it's Everton at home this week. Then the blank. Then it's West Ham, Brighton, Southampton, Norwich. So the fixtures after the blank are very good. I think the only thing that it wouldn't necessarily put me off, but the reason I wouldn't be rushing maybe to get them is because Everton is not going to be an easy game. I think you could quite well wait until game week 29, see how they do against Everton, and then maybe pick their players up. But obviously, it's getting ahead of the curve by getting them for Everton. And if you're not in a position, like for me, I would wildcard, so I'm not in a position where the blank really matters because I've got enough bench options to cover it. But if you're not in that position, it probably is worth avoiding. Then look at the West Ham game, who have been in awful form at the moment, and obviously not really expecting another 4 goals like they did against Newcastle when they play Everton. So in terms of the actual players, I'm still not sure whether I'd want to jump on the Arsenal defence. Bellerin, potentially attacking returns as well as defensive returns. I think Arteta has gotten playing pretty well defensively. I wouldn't expect them to concede as many as they maybe would have before. I don't know if their defence is the ones I would opt for at the moment. I think there's plenty of cheaper options around. Bolly, Egan at Sheffield United, etc. to look for as well. So I want to go for defence, and then looking at kind of attackers instead. So Aubameyang, I think, is always going to be a good option. So consistent, even when he plays on the wing or a striker. I've spoken about this before. He's kind of, although it's a smaller sample size playing on the wing, his goal kind of ratio to games at playing those positions is pretty good. And I think he had the most shots in the box even while playing left wing against Newcastle. So not too bad. Obviously, he's just quite expensive, so maybe quite hard to fit in. Especially if you've got the likes of Ings, Jimenez, Calvert-Lewin, Vardy, Firmino, whoever it might be, they're all cheaper. Which is probably why most of us don't have Aubameyang, even though he's been so consistent all season. And then obviously lots, like me, looking at Pepe now, a bit of a knee-jerk, 17 points. The problem for me is he's still 9.1 million, so it's very expensive. It's not far off Son. Obviously, Son's injured now, but it's not too much of a price difference there. More expensive than Mahrez. 1.1 million more than Fernandez. Arguably, maybe he is a better pick, but it's a lot of money. Only 4 shots in the box in the last 4 games, so goal threat maybe not too great, but his chances created are decent. So you could expect to see some more assists. That's why you got 2 at the weekend as well. So I think the thing with Pepe, the only thing that kind of makes me kind of a little bit tempted by him is he came into the league with a lot of hype around him that we're expecting a lot of goals. He'd done that in other leagues as well. But obviously it didn't happen straight away. But sometimes players do find it difficult. They take time to integrate into the league. And all they maybe need is a confidence booster like this game. We saw last season with Jota. Now that was more of a formation change at Wolves, but a lot of hype for him coming from the Championship. Didn't really do anything. Then he kind of set the he set the league alight, but he did extremely well from an FPL point of view for the second half of the season. And obviously we're a bit into the second half of the season now, but maybe this is Pepe's time. So if you want a bit of a punt, and I think you can punt at the moment because there's not too many standout options, and the blank's obviously not helping with that. Most big teams don't have an amazing run of fixtures either. I do like the look of potentially going for Pepe, but it's 9.1 million, only 4 shots in the box in the last 4. That would probably put me off a little bit. I promise if you go and find the tweet where I asked for questions, or if you go on YouTube and go to the community tab, you will see that people ask me about Man United players. It is not just me wanting to talk about them. It's not just because I've got the shirt on. But I thought I would, as people ask. I always like to talk about Man United where I can. So we'll go through this quick. people are looking at maybe going for defensive or attacking options. So 3 clean sheets in the last 5 league matches, and I think Man United have been doing pretty well defensively for most of the season in terms of underlying numbers, kind of the amount of like good chances they've conceded, shots in the box and stuff. They've done pretty well throughout the season, not obviously every single week, but on average over the season they've done well. And they have converted that to 3 clean sheets in 5 now. Bailly played the last match against Chelsea instead of Lindelof. Be interesting to see if he keeps his place. I thought he played pretty well actually. And like I said, defensively they kind of got a unit there that knows each other now. And have been doing okay for the whole season, like I said. Maguire is a goal threat. We know that already from his days at Leicester. Not really happened at Man United, but to be fair, we've not really had anyone from corners that can actually cross the ball and beat the first man regularly. And Bruno Fernandez has already done that in 2 games. So that's quite promising for Maguire owners. And Wan-Bissaka, although obviously not known for his attacking prowess necessarily, he has created 9 chances in the last 4 matches, which is second overall for all defenders. The same as Lucas Digne, and actually 4 more than Trent Alexander-Arnold. Now, I'm not saying he's better than Trent Alexander-Arnold going forward. Liverpool fans, you don't need to comment below. I know that Trent Alexander-Arnold's the best right back in the league, but Wan-Bissaka's creating quite a few chances, and I think that's probably gone under the radar a little bit. And with the 3 clean sheets in 5, and obviously there's a lot less money than Liverpool defenders as well. Could be a nice option. I'm not saying you get him instead of Liverpool defenders. It would be as well as, but potentially consider him. The only thing that would put me off maybe is the fixtures. Watford at home, they've done well, but it's a home game at Old Trafford. Well, I think it'll be hard for Man United to break them down. I do think the same could be said for Watford trying to break Man United down. So that could be a clean sheet. Everton away is tricky because Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison in such good form. Man City very tricky as well, though Man United have done quite well against them this year. Spurs away, they've now lost Son, they've got no Kane, so that might not be too bad. And then the good fixtures kind of start. Sheffield United at home in game week 31, although that'll probably be a blank game week, and then Brighton away and Bournemouth at home. So 5.2 million for Maguire, 5.3 for Wan-Bissaka. Potentially nice differentials. Probably not the time to kind of run out and jump on them though if you've got better things to kind of do with your team. And then in attack, you're only really looking at Martian Fernandes. Will Pogba ever come back, or any of the other players really that nailed? Daniel James just not providing enough. Igalo got minutes against Chelsea, but I'm not expecting him to get too many going forward because I think Martial will keep that striker spot and Igalo will kind of just be there as backup. Potentially Martial could move to the left and Agero will play up front. But I'd want to see that for a few games before I committed to bringing him in. So I think your only 2 options really are Martial and Fernandes. I think the good thing about Bruno is he's pretty much got all set pieces. I know Fred sometimes takes corners or free kicks from certain sides or positions, but mostly it's down to Fernandes. He hit the post, got an assist from a corner as well. You'd expect him to get some open play returns too. So for 8 million, I like him. Martial continues to tick over, though, a little bit cheaper as well. Fixtures are not fantastic, but again, I think you could say the same thing. Man City are there, I think, to be scored against. Same for Spurs. And, against Watford and Everton, I wouldn't expect Man United to score lots of goals. But if they do, then you'd expect Fernandes and Martial to be involved. So I think at a time when there's not really too many standout midfielders, you could go for them. But I think, there probably are better options. But if you want to go for Man United, it's not the worst time to go for them, I would say. So this is the big one now, Son replacements. Obviously, a lot of people kind of got him in for the Aston Villa game, which he did really well. It sounds like he actually fractured his arm at the start of the game and then just played the rest of the game anyway. But obviously, can't keep on doing that, so he's going to have surgery and it's going to keep him out for weeks. Mourinho said he's not even sure he'll see him for the rest of the season. Either way, he probably needs to go. And it's super frustrating because I got him on wildcard and now I have to get rid of him. But there's lots and lots and lots of options. Probably too many to go too in depth in this video. And although I would say there's no real need to hang on to him, obviously if you have got a decent bench player for this week, you could, and you've only got 1 free transfer, you could save that transfer and use 2 to spread the cash around next week instead, potentially. It all depends obviously what your plans are, but you could do that. You don't have to get rid of him this week, but obviously you will lose money on him probably if you get rid of him, because it probably will go down in price at some point. And yeah, there's so many replacements. So I am recording this in advance. I did my team selection video in advance, then Son got injured, which was annoying. But I'm doing this in advance of the Man City versus West Ham game. This will go out on Wednesday afternoon. So you'll already have known this has gone out in advance. So obviously we don't know about De Bruyne or Mahrez, whether they're going to play or not. I'm sure De Bruyne will. Whether Mahrez will play against West Ham, how many minutes they're going to get, etc. Whether there's going to be an injury. But you could go straight back to De Bruyne if you don't already own him. I know a lot of you will do, but the fixtures are still putting me off a little bit. Leicester away blank, Man United away, Burnley at home, Chelsea away, Liverpool at home. Maybe those fixtures aren't that bad for Man City of all teams, but it's a lot of money for De Bruyne, and I kind of want to use this period as a chance to maybe go without him. The one thing to consider though is they might have a double game week in game week 29. It is being talked about within the community a little bit. I'm not sure when that might get acknowledged for for a definite when it will get announced. But one thing to keep an eye on, because obviously if that does happen, then it's much more kind of interesting to get Man City players back for that double game week. Obviously one of the best teams in the league. You'd expect points in that game. You could go for Mahrez, but obviously nowhere near as nailed as Kevin De Bruyne, although Sterling is out at the moment, so that does help his chances. Pepe, we kind of already talked about. I still think I wouldn't be expecting too much from him. From 9.1 million, that's probably not the best way to kind of go about picking your players, but he's a massive differential, like huge. I think his ownership is less than 3% overall. Arsenal do have good fixtures, and if he can nail down his place and keep playing week in, week out, why not? It could be the one to go for 9.1. Martian Fernandes, again, we've already spoke about them as well. Can you rely on them? I mean, Fernandes, we're only 2 games in, been quite impressive, but maybe not necessarily from an attacking FPL point of view, but just general play within that Man United team. But he is monopolising set pieces, and for 8 million, again, he's a massive differential. Richarlison's got the form, but not the fixtures. But I'm almost at the point now where even though I'm a fixtures person, I would still get Richarlison in. 8.1 million. Fixtures are difficult, but Everton are in really good form, and so is he. So again, it's probably not the worst time to bring him in, to be honest. And obviously, you save a bit of money. Some was like 9.7, 9.8 million, and Richarlison's 8.1. It gives you a chunk of change to go and spend elsewhere as well. Or if you've got the money to upgrade, you could go for Mane. Now, I understand that most of you have probably already got 3 Liverpool players anyway, but Mane is now a huge differential versus Salah. Not saying you go for Mane instead of Salah. You could go for both, potentially. I'm not going to get into a massive double attack or double defence discussion again. But for instance, I'm thinking of maybe trying to get Mane back, keep Salah, and then captain Mane week in, week out, hoping that he can outscore him. And that would boost me up the rankings because he's lesser owned than Salah. So that's one to go for. But there are so many Sun options. Let me know in the comments below who you're thinking of going for. I think right now I'm probably going to go for Fernandes, I think. But there is a part of me that wants to get Mane back. Richarlison, the fixtures would probably, in the end, put me off, even though it probably shouldn't do. And if we knew about the double game for Man City in advance, I'd probably just go straight back to Kevin De Bruyne, to be honest. I have the bench to be able to just put him on the bench and use one of my other players. But obviously that all depends on your team. So the first keep or sell kind of question is about Sergio Agero at Man City. And obviously it's a good time to talk about Man City options in general, especially around kind of the Champions League and stuff. So if you've not already seen, which I'm sure you have, they've allegedly broke financial fair play rules. So it looks like they're banned from the Champions League for 2 years. And they're going to appeal it, of course. We'll have to see what happens there, whether they get back in or not. My gut feeling is they will get back in, but I just don't know the ins or outs of it. And obviously we have to wait and see what the appeal, or how the appeal happens and how it goes ahead, and what happens there. But the question comes now is, will Pep focus more on the Champions League now that obviously if they are banned for the next 2 years, they won't be able to win it, of course, because they won't be in it. So my gut feeling is it doesn't really change a whole lot. I think the league is already over anyway. Liverpool winning the league, there ain't nothing that's going to change that at this point. And I'm sure Pep knows that, even if he's not going to come out and say it. I'm sure he knows that. So if he was going to concentrate on the Champions League, he'd already be doing it for a start. So I don't think the ban really changes that too much. Of course he wants to win it for Man City. That would be such a huge thing for him and for the club. I don't think it necessarily changes anything. And to be honest, whether or not he's going for the Champions League more or less anyway, does that really change our thinking about Man City players? I mean, De Bruyne looks pretty nailed on, but who else is nailed in that team apart from Ederson? I'm not sure there's many other players that I'd be kind of happy to own, from a rotation point of view. Like, I've got Mahrez. If I had Agero, I'd probably be happy to keep him as well. But I think when you have these players, you expect rotation anyway. If I have De Bruyne, I'd be annoyed if he was benched. Everyone else, I'm not so sure. So unless we hear something from Pep or we kind of see any changes in kind of lineups to indicate that he's going for the Champions League more, then I don't really think we can say that right now. That's what's going to happen. So in terms of Agüero, keep or sell, I think it depends what your plan is. Like, I wouldn't, if you already had a plan in place, whether that was to keep or to sell, I don't think the Champions League stuff would change my mind on that too much right now. I think let's see what happens in the West Ham game, how many minutes and stuff he gets. But I think he's going to start the next couple of games. Pep talks quite a lot about rhythm, so having 2 games and going into the hard Champions League game against Real Madrid, surely he's going to go with Agüero, not Jesus. But again, who knows with Pep? So I think I would probably keep him if I had him. If I had a plan for him, maybe a downgrade to fund another move into midfield. Look, maybe if you're doing Agüero to Vardy to fund Son to Mane, then that's probably something I could get behind. But I don't think there's a massive rush to get rid of Agüero personally. And similar with Jamie Vardy. Now, the difference with Vardy is obviously he's a lot cheaper than Agero, and he has very good fixtures coming up. No blank game week either. No Champions League worries and stuff like that. The thing for me, if you're playing 3 up front, then the 2 main players that I would want are Ings and Jimenez plus 1 more, right? So if you've already got Ings and Jimenez, I spoke about this on a Fantasy Football Scout video this week. There's probably not a massive rush to get rid of Vardy. Look, you could go Firmino, that's who I've got. But most of you have probably already got 3 Liverpool players anyway, so he's not even an option. There's Calvert-Lewin, and again, if I had Calvert-Lewin, which we're going to talk about in a minute, I'd probably keep him because of the form he's in and how good Everton have been. I'm not sure he's someone I'd rush to bring in because of the fixtures they've got there. So for me, the fixtures are good from game week 28 for Leicester. We've spoken about Ndidi quite a lot. I think him missing has not been good for Leicester or Vardy. I said it before, not only does he just win the ball back quickly, which is good from a defensive point of view, but then he transitions that into the attack as well, which helps them go forward at kind of a quicker rate and more often as well. If he's winning back the ball more often, they get to attack more as well. So I do think him coming back could help Vardy. I just don't see another standout option. Look, if you've not got Ings or Jimenez, then maybe they're a better option. But I think you just hold him for the Man City game. In the reverse fixture, he got 9 points. Whether that'll happen again, we don't know. But this one is obviously at home. And then the good fixtures start. He's not got a blank in game week 28. It's a good fixture against Norwich. And then the good fixtures continue. I'd probably keep him. And then same for Calvert-Lewin. If I had him, I'd probably stick. If I've got the money to go to Ings or Jimenez, I'd probably make that move. If not, I'd probably just stick with him. He's in great form, posting some really good underlying numbers, getting plenty of chances in the box, and ultimately putting them away, which is what you want from your striker. So I would keep him. I just don't think I'd bring him in. And lastly, we've got Captaincy, and I really don't think there's a huge amount to discuss this week because some weeks you have teams, you have a large range of teams that have got a large range of good fixtures. So maybe Liverpool, Man City, Spurs, Man United, whoever it might be, might all have kind of bottom of the table, relegation candidates as their opposition. But this week is not really the case. So Arsenal got Everton. So like I said, Aubameyang in the points quite a lot. I'm not sure I'd be confident enough to captain him against Everton though. Chelsea versus Spurs is an interesting one. Spurs obviously missing Son, not got Kane. Potentially you could captain Ali, I guess. I mean, Chelsea defensively have not been good this season. I wouldn't expect them to concede a lot of goals. And vice versa, I can see this one being quite a tight game actually. I know Spurs have just conceded twice to Aston Villa, but we've seen them be defensively okay like they were against Liverpool as well. So again, if you own Abraham still, but I just don't see many of you either A, owning Abraham, or B, even wanting to captain him in this game. Man City have even got a tough game against Leicester, and again, if I was confident that Agero was going to start, or maybe De Bruyne, then you could captain, but again, I don't think that's an easy game. And Man United versus Watford, I think they're going to struggle to break them down. So I really think it kind of gets left to Liverpool versus West Ham, Southampton versus Villa. Now, the big punt is obviously Danny Ings against Aston Villa. Been so consistent this season. I think he scored 15 goals, scored again at the weekend. Doesn't matter if Southampton lose this game. I got a feeling that Villa might score. Obviously, Grealish has been playing so well. But it doesn't matter. As long as Ings scores, he's going to get, obviously, points and probably bonus points. If he can get a brace here, even better. So, Ings is definitely the punt. And the big thing here is, although Southampton have been creating a massive amount of chances in the last few weeks, and Ings hasn't had, a huge amount of shots in the box like he has been before, the great thing about Aston Villa is they give you all those chances every single game week without fail. Now, not as many if Mings is in the team. Obviously, Mings missed out at the weekend, which didn't help them. Now, if he's back, that could cause a bit of a problem for Southampton, but they're still going to concede plenty of chances, I think. And so if you wanted to take a big punt, I think Danny Ings is the one. Otherwise, you've got to go for Leicester versus West Ham. Again, at the time of recording this and while you're going to watch this, the Man City-West Ham game won't have happened. But West Ham have also been giving up a lot of chances. And unless something magic happens against Man City where we think they're suddenly a great defensive team, which I highly, highly doubt, then it's got to be Liverpool captaincy, I think, for the kind of the obvious pick. Now, between Mane and Salah, I really don't think there's still much in it. Like, we could sit here, I think, all day trying to find a difference between the two of them, but there isn't much apart from penalties for Salah. And I think if I had both of them and I was trying to chase rank, I would go for Mane. I think there's not, like I said, too much of a difference in it. But in terms of rank, if Mane was to get, a brace and Salah happens to blank that week, or Mane gets a goal and assist and Salah blanks again, which again is unlikely, I get that. If it did happen, that's quite a big rank boost if you captain Mane over Salah. I just think I would just look at the kind of ownership there. If I had both and I wasn't really worried about ownership, then I'd probably keep it on Salah just because of the penalties, which seems to be the only way to propel him ahead of Mane at this point. But Mane came back. Obviously, I was expecting big things in the double game. It didn't happen because of the injury, but he came back, came on in the last game. scored a nice goal against Norwich. And to be honest, it looked like he hadn't really been away for that long, which he hadn't been. But so, you know, sometimes it takes a bit of time to get back into it, but not for him. He looked very good and took his goal very well as well. So I think it has to be a Liverpool player, Salah or Mane, if you want to go for a punt, Danny Ings. Otherwise, there's not really too many other players I'd be interested in this week. So that's it for this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully there's been no big injury news from between when I'm recording this video on Tuesday evening to when it goes out on Wednesday afternoon. But we'll see. Fingers crossed it doesn't happen. If you did enjoy the video, make sure to give it a like. Let me know below if you've got any other comments about kind of what I've talked about, any difference of opinion, players you would kind of stick or twist with, you know, Agero, Calvert-Lewin, Vardy, and who your Sun replacements are as well. So let me know below and subscribe if you're new around here. Hit the notification bell so you know when all the other videos are going live. There'll be a live stream as normal, 9 o'clock Thursday evening. Otherwise, I'll leave this one here. Like, comment, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Check out OneFootball, and I'll catch you next time. Cheers all.